Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast, this time featuring the FIAAA Insider. Our guest today is a good friend, Ron Allan. He's the Director of Athletics at Lecanto High School here in Florida. Ron, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Jake. It's good to see you and to talk to you again. Wish it was in person, but, times are what they are.
Absolutely. So this isn't our first Zoom this month.
No.
We always like to let our listeners get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, your background in sports, and kind of how that got you started on a path to becoming an AD.
Okay. I was born and raised in a little town called Fremont, Ohio. It's up near the lake, near Toledo. And I went to a very good high school, Fremont Ross High School up there. Very storied background in athletics. We have Charles Woodson's graduate of there. He was after me because I'm old. But he, we had some NFL players come through there. So, football was big. I was always liked basketball was probably my second thing. Unfortunately, my size in high school, I was a 5'7" offensive lineman, so that didn't pan out, and then basketball didn't either. So I got really involved in basketball as a student assistant with our boys basketball team all through high school. And then when I went to college, I ended up working with the basketball team and got to know the track coach. And I had thrown, shot, discus going through middle school and 1 year of high school, and realized that. And when I was in high school, really, I wasn't going to be competitive, and took a different turn there. But talked to the college coach. I had grown 5 inches. I got to be 6 foot, 6'1", and he said, we need some throwers. So I got involved in throwing in college. Started throwing shot, discus, javelin, and at dual meets, when we were up big and didn't matter, I would run anchor in the 4x4 at the end of the meets. So that was always a good thing. But got involved there, stayed involved with basketball at the college level as a student assistant. Actually got my first coaching job, paid job, when I was a junior in college at a local middle school. I had done some observations at the school and got to know the middle school track coach and the high school track coach, who was also a football coach. And he asked me they asked me if I would be interested in being an assistant middle school coach that year. So I started coaching track, and kind of an odd mixture of events I worked with. I worked with our 800 runners and the throwers, which, with a track background, those really aren't things. They're kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, but got my first taste of actual coaching for a stipend at that point. And then got into the whole hiring process, getting out of college in 1983. Things weren't real open up in Ohio. So my future wife, at the time she was my fiance, we applied all over the United States. Got a phone call the week we were to be married. Happened to be home from my factory job that I had that summer from Lecanto, wanting to know if I was interested in a position down here. I got out an atlas, found it on the atlas because, there was no internet back then. Looked at it and said, yeah, we're coming to Florida on our honeymoon. So we got married on a Saturday, came to Florida, got here on Tuesday, got here on a Tuesday, interviewed at Wednesday at the school, got hired on Wednesday, found an apartment Wednesday afternoon, got all the utilities and everything turned over the next couple of days, and started work on Monday. Never went home. So, we've been here since 1983 at the same school. We were building our building we're in right now at the time. And, I tell everybody I moved over here on the Mayflower moving van from next door into our building. And I've been here since we've been in high school in '83. And we moved over here in '84, and I've been here ever since. So that's my first teaching job was here. My first coaching job was here, and moving into athletic administration.
Well, how did you go from, we all have that story. What's your story? How'd you go from teacher coach onto the role of athletic director?
Well, when I first got here, my first real friend in Florida was the athletic director at the time, Doug Connors. And Doug and I became great friends. We still are. He's retired now. He moved up into administration, and he was an AP here for a long time. But I started working with him extensively during the process of being a new coach. We were both similar in age, and started to learn the ropes from him. And then as he moved up, we got a different athletic director. I kept close contact with all the ADs I worked with over the years. And when the job opened up in 2010, I think it was in the summer, I was the head football coach at the time, and I had coached almost everything here at one point or another, except for I think tennis and soccer and volleyball. So we have the full gamut of sports except for like lacrosse and water polo here at the high school. So there's a bunch of sports I've coached for at least a season or a couple, even swimming. So I had worked with FHSAA in different facets as a member of the FACA. I was the FACA state coordinator for girls basketball for 8 years. So that put me on the advisory committee for basketball. And, I had developed a rapport with FHSAA personnel at the time. So when I applied for the AD job, principal at the time, Mr. Kelly Tyler, he said, look, I know how to do things because you've been around it so much. You've been very active with, Dick Slack, who was our long-term AD here. I think he was the AD here for 15 years. Him and I were very good friends. I did a lot of work with him in the field of athletic administration, working on budgeting and things like that. And new guidelines coming out from FHSAA and the Red Book and things of that nature. So he goes, you're the logical choice. And this is something you've always wanted to do, which I never wanted to be an AP. I started ed leadership classes for my master's, had to do an interview with sitting principal. I interviewed with my principal at the time, and he looked at me and he said, he got up from his desk and he walked from behind his desk and stood behind me. And he goes, do you want that chair? And I said, that wouldn't be nice in my office. He goes, no, I was a dean at the time. He goes, no. He goes, do you want to sit in that chair and make the decisions I have to make? He goes, because if you don't, he goes, don't do it. And I realized at that point, I didn't want to be that guy. I mean, I knew the decisions he had to make, because I've always had a great relationship with my principals. And I didn't want to be put in that situation, some of the stuff that they have to deal with. And I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to go in to become an AP, and I didn't want to be a principal. So I didn't want to take a job from somebody that was going to be an AP that wanted to be a principal. And I got the job as an athletic administrator here. I oversee athletics, activities, all that stuff, everything from, our athletic teams to prom, homecoming, all of our clubs, band, chorus, the whole shooting match. So it's an interesting position. I love it. I try to do the best job I can.
Well, you and I have got to know each other over the years through the Athletic Director Advisory Committee and obviously through the FIAAA board. You're in a unique position. You know, you've been at the same school for several years. How have you seen the role of the school-based athletic administrator change during that time? And again, from your first days as a teacher coach to now where you are sitting in that athletic director's chair, how has the job changed?
I think with the with the evolution, even in the 10 years that I've been doing it, with the evolution of the means of communicating with our parents and things of that nature, I think that's the biggest change I've seen. We have to be almost in live time trying to communicate, where when I started out coaching, you did a ditto copy of what you wanted to send home to the kids. For those people listening, if you don't know what a ditto machine is, just think of the purple ink on a white paper and you sniffed it because it had a weird smell. If you didn't live during those times, you missed out. But anyway, I think that's one thing that has really changed. It's become a lot more involved, a lot more hands-on, I think, too. I know when some of our prior ADs were doing the job, it didn't entail as much day to day, I don't think, and moment to moment that you have to do. And especially in the current climate, it's even more so. So, and some of the things we have to do as far as paperwork and things of that nature, I think is it's become easier, but it's become more complex.
Yeah, I think there's more paperwork, but there's less paper. It's all
Right.
It's digital.
Right. And I, to be honest with you, as soon as and I'll put a plug in for home campus, as soon as they came out with the athletic clearance platform, I mean, I saw it. I came back. I talked to my assistant. I said, this is what they got. And I said, I'll pay for it if you think you can do it. And she said, let's do it. And so we've been on board since day one when they rolled it out. I talked to my principal, and I said, this is going to save us time. It's going to save us headaches. And it has. I enjoy it. The parents have figured it out pretty much. And it works great. And it's really helped us on our end to stay out of some situations that, if you were just chasing paper like we used to, I don't know if anybody remembers the old pink sheets, but, at least we don't have to do those anymore. So.
No, I agree 100%. I think they should have you and I on the home campus endorsement page.
I asked them for a discount.
You've alluded to it a little bit, but I want you to share. In athletic administration, we talk about the importance of leadership. We talk about the importance of mentoring. Who have been some of your mentors along the way? Back when you were in school and even during your career, who's helped mentor you into the position you're at today?
Well, I think the first couple back in high school, and fortunately, I've had the chance to talk to both people. One of them has passed. Biz Paith was a basketball coach, and I had a chance to. He actually moved to Florida at one point, and was working at Cedar Key. And our paths crossed because we both taught the same subject. And probably one of the reasons why I taught the subject I did when I was a classroom teacher, I was teaching business, is because of him. He was a business and history teacher and coached basketball. And I kind of followed in his footsteps, and got a chance to talk to him some while he was at Cedar Key, and actually got a chance to tell him the impact he had And then there was another basketball coach that I had, Alex Clark, that I worked with when he was an assistant at Ross. And I went home in January. My father-in-law celebrated his 90th birthday. And we went to church with him, the whole clan. And when I say the whole clan, that meant his 6 children, their spouses, and their grandchildren. So we doubled the church capacity that day. But Alex Clark was there. And I saw him, and I went over to him, and I said, look, Coach Clark, I said, I know the actual job of a teacher and a coach, that the payoff is moments like we're experiencing right now. I said, the monetary part of it is good, but when somebody comes back and tells you the impact they had on your life, on their life, and how some of those things came, those lessons learned, whether they were hard lessons, and some of those were, or whether they were just words of encouragement along the way, what impact they had on their career, that's a big payoff. I said, and I want you to know that, you had that impact on me. I said, I was inducted into the FIAAA Hall of Fame in 2018. And I said, one of the reasons why I'm there is because of what you and Coach Pace did back when I was in high school. So, I was lucky enough to do that. And for those people that are listening, if you haven't done that, if those people are still around, do it. I've had some people do it to me. Our director of transportation for the county is one of my former players. And we sat through, those opening guest speaker things at the beginning of the year one year. And the speaker talked about that. And about 2 days later, it was probably a 2-page email when it was printed from her telling me the impact that I had on her. And I still have that email. And that was 15 years ago. And those are the things that, Biz Pace, Alex Clark, Bob Hilty, my college track coach, who kept encouraging me because I was a 6 foot, 290-pound blob that he encouraged to keep working. And eventually, I lettered 3 years in college, became a pretty decent, Division III thrower. Didn't set the world on fire, don't have any records, but a great experience. And then here, as far as an athletic administrator and a teacher, I would have to say some of the guys I've worked with and for, as coaches, Ron Klein, he was a head football coach here, and him and I, he taught me a lot about how to deal with situations and deal with people. Kelly Tyler, my longest standing principal. I've had numerous principals. Some of the things he taught me. Another one, Archie Dabney, who's an institution in this county. His caring, just the way he cared about his staff, the way he cared about his kids. And just a real quick story about Archie and my relationship, and I hope I don't bore anybody. But I had a health issue at a basketball game one time. He was not principal. He was just there watching. He had long been retired. And he came back, saw that I was having an issue. He accompanied my wife, who was pregnant with our youngest child. She was 9 months pregnant, due any day. Accompanied us to the hospital, stayed with us until they told him I was out of the woods. And then he left. But he hadn't been my principal for 15 years. But he was there, and he sought me out. And he looked after one of his kids. And I never had him as a teacher or a coach. I was just an employee under his supervision. But, and I still hear from him occasionally. And, I've shared with him his impact on me too. And it just keeps going back to that relationship. part of it. That, you know, those people that have an impact on you, you need to let them know, you know, and, you know, I've done that with some of the people that are on the FIAAA board. You know, I've had private conversations with them. You know, I'm not doing that to pat myself on the back, but I'm just, those things that you've got to do that. And I feel very strongly.
Appreciate you sharing. Very impactful. You and I talked a little bit about COVID, and certainly we know the impact it had this spring and continues to have, not just in Florida, but nationwide. We know the response in Florida is still kind of up in the air, but share with our listeners, if you can, some of the things that you did at your school this past spring and some of the things that you're planning on doing, you know, with this summer with conditioning and maybe even into this fall with reopening.
Well, this past spring, we, when it came to the point where, you know, we knew that they had, you know, we were canceling. And I get choked up right now, just thinking about it, because, you know, I try to get down and see our teams play, practice, try to get to know some of the kids the best I can. Cause, you know, at a school of 1,600, 1,700 kids, you know, you don't get a chance to know everybody, especially if you're not actively coaching them. But we did Be the Light night, and a lot of schools did it. You know, they turned all their lights on and all that. Well, what we did was we did a Facebook Live for it, and I'm getting choked up talking about it. And the only part that was scripted was the very beginning, when I was doing the intro to the whole thing. And we started on the football field, and my principal and I talked on Facebook Live on my phone. And then I walked to the other fields that were lit up, and we had an administrator there that would talk a little bit. And during each walk, I would talk. And during the first transfer between the football and softball field, it hit me that it was district time. It was, you know, we were getting ready to play a couple of our key matchups in sports, and that those kids weren't gonna get it. And I'm getting choked up thinking about it. And I let my emotions show at that point. And it still bothers me, because those kids did so much. And going forward, like we talked about earlier, going forward, I want to give my kids the opportunity to safely. And whether it's just a handful of games, let's say for football, maybe they get 7 games. It's something. If volleyball gets 14 or whatever, it's something. If my cross country runners can go out and run, you know, in a few meets, they're going to get some experience that high school offers. That if they miss it again, you know, I think athletics, the part it plays in a high school experience is something that when it's gone, it can't be replaced. You know, you and I can reschedule our planned vacation. We'll just do it next year. You know, good Lord willing, creek don't rise, we're going to be here, and we can go on the trip we have planned. Those kids can't go back in time and get back into high school and play their senior year, or their freshman year for that matter. So we want to make it as safe as we can for our kids, you know, put in all the precautions we can, you know, the physical distancing when possible, the sanitization, you know, making sure our facilities are as safe as possible. We're trying to do, you know, I've got behind me, I just picked up 8 more thermometers so that we can get them out to all of every one of my sports can have access to a couple, one if it's a smaller squad, two if they're the bigger, football might have three, but so we can get those things done in a timely manner and they can get out and do their practices. We're going to meet after we finalize our plan. I'm going to meet with my staff via Zoom, go over the plan, talk to them about what they see the pitfalls are, because I'm not going to see them. I'm not going to see them all. You're not going to see all yours, because we're I've already talked to a football coach. What do you do about your quarterbacks? You think about it, your quarterbacks usually work together all the time. Well, if one of them pops positive, now you got no quarterback. So what are you going to do? We got to think about some of those situations. Same, volleyball is going to have different situations they're going to have to deal with. That's kind of what we're going to do going forward. We want to try to include fans the best we can, considering CDC guidelines. We're going to look at our capacities and how we can possibly institute some social distancing and a reduced capacity to allow people to come watch their kids instead of just doing it via a live stream through NFHS network or something like that. But, we want to try to make it as normal as we can, but as safe as we can.
Well, it's going to be interesting moving forward. Still a lot of different plans, a lot of uncertainty. In addition to COVID this past spring, nationally, we saw just an increased awareness and involvement regarding social issues. From your perspective as the AD, what are some things that athletic administrators can do better in this area of social awareness?
Well, I think part of it has to be, we have to educate our kids, make sure that they understand what's acceptable and what isn't. We're fortunate. We've got some diversity in our staff. That's always been something that we try to do, is hire competent people and that have a diverse background. And I think we do that. I think the biggest thing for us to understand is, we have to change. We might have to change attitudes that are pre-ingrained when they come into our programs. They might come from a less tolerant background than others. And that's something that I've always tried to strive to do as a coach and athletic administrator is, your background doesn't mean anything to me as far as who you are. I mean, you are who you are. And I don't, regardless of whether you're, an African-American, an Indian kid, whatever, you're one of our players, and you're going to be treated with respect and dignity and treated the same as anybody else. And, I'm not very tolerant of those kind of attitudes. And, the same thing with the LGBTQ stuff. That's something that, we've dealt with here pretty successfully, with inclusion of the people that are in those situations, or we have a group here that is very active, and they're accepted pretty well within our student population, our athletic teams, and our activities and things of that nature. So, I think we're doing a good job. We got to do a better job, across the board in all those areas. But you're always going to fight a bias no matter what. Everybody has their biases, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, I got to deal with that, just like anybody else does. Everybody thinks they don't, but you do. And, it's a growth process as long as you're alive.
Ron, we've kind of come to the end of the podcast, and we always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. You're certainly an experienced AD now, and you're getting ready to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. Tell me what's going to go inside Ron Allan's toolbox.
Well, the first thing, and I think it's the most important thing, is get a mentor. Bottom line, get somebody that has some experience, that knows how things operate, and get them on speed dial. You know, because you think you know some things, but you don't know. You know, like say, you know, what you don't know what you don't know. You know, and that's something that I tried to do. You know, I got Jody Phillips on speed dial as soon as I got the job. You know, I knew who he was. I got Bob LaValla. I don't know if you ever met Bob, but Bob was down at Springstead. You know, I had a relationship with him prior because of, you know, coaching, and you know, I got him on speed dial. So, you know, I had those people where I could call if I didn't know how to handle something, or at least to get an idea how it went. Second thing is get involved. Get involved in the FIAAA. Get involved with the FACA. Get involved with those professional organizations. And I'm going to give a plug back to Kelly Tyler and Doug Connors. And I talked about them early in the podcast. Both of those people. In fact, I got Doug's FIAAA ring here in my desk drawer. And he was very active in FIAAA when he was an athletic administrator back in, you know, the early 90s when FIAAA was just getting started, I think. And Kelly Tyler was active in it when he was in my position. And that's one of the things Mr. Tyler told me immediately when he offered me the job, after he asked me if I really wanted it. That was his last interview question. Do you really want this job? And I said yes. And then about 3 months later, when I had my first big decision I had to make, he was like, remember that question I asked? I said, yeah. He goes, well, this is why I asked it. So I was kind of foreshadowing, but he told me, he said, get involved in FIAAA. He said, you're going to learn some things. So I've always had the support of my administration to pursue those things. And, you know, we had classes together. And, you know, we've both been involved with the FIAAA, you know, teaching classes and things of that nature too. And you can see over my shoulder, if, you know, on the video, I've got all my manuals behind me. So, you know, that's something, you know, get involved with FIAAA. And just the other thing is, you know, develop some checklists. You know, there are some out there, you know, we publish it through FIAAA that tell you, here's some things, you know, and Jay Rader does a good job with our newsletter, getting those checklists out to our members. Don't just look at them and say, oh, that's nice. Look at it and see what's there, because it's very appropriate for what we do. You know, get the stuff done. And, you know, you tweak it for your own situation. And that's the thing. Through all the classes that I've taken, and I'm sure you've said the same thing in your presentations, and I've done it the same thing in my presentations, I've done it the conferences, is it might not fit exactly what you need, but take it and tweak it and make it your own. You're not stealing it. We're putting it out there for you. It's not like going to a football convention or, you know, something, and somebody doesn't want to share their offense or their defense with you, all the intricacies of it. No, we want to share it with you because you might find a better way. And I've done that through you and other people I've heard speak at our conferences. You know, they go through things and they'll say, well, this is how we do it. Well, and I'm thinking about how we do it. And I'm like, hey, that's a better way. So let me take that part of it, put it into play. And when Mr. Tyler was my principal, he hated it when I come back from FIAAA conference. Because I know I had Roger Mayo as a teacher of, I can't remember the course it was. I think it was facilities. It might have been legal issues, but he was talking about facilities. And he told a story about where he had kept turning in his bleachers on his visitor side as being a potential hazard because it was old wooden kind. And somebody fell through the bleachers. And he said that, you know, like 2 days later, the county had sent a whole crew out to redo the visitor bleachers. So ever since then, I'll do, get in the golf cart and go out and look at my facilities and note what needs to be dealt with. And I keep emailing it to my people. And Mr. Tyler got tired of it one time. He goes, I wish I would never sent you there because you're inundating us with facilities. I said, well, you can either pay for it now
Exactly.
or pay a whole bunch later.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so, I'm just trying to save us down the road. And that's just an example of what, doing some of these courses, they make you start thinking about what's going on at your school, how you can improve it, and how you can make it so that some of those issues don't come back and go to your school lawyer. That's the extreme part of it. But I mean, there's a lot of other little tips and tricks that, having a mentor, doing those things, those checklists, going to the conferences and things like that can really improve what you do and how your school functions in the case of an event happening during one of your contests. So, I think those are the things that I would look at the most. Get involved, get a mentor, and get those checklists and tweak all that stuff to meet your needs.
No, absolutely. I think anything that helps an athletic director keep something from getting to the principal or superintendent's desk, those are good things. Okay?
Yep, that's the thing. When I got the job, I talked to Mr. Tyler and I said, look, my job one for me is going to be keeping things from getting to the corner, because his office is in the corner up here in the office area. And I said, I want it to stop with me. You're going to be informed of what's going on, but I try to fix things. And that going back to the whole COVID thing, that's what's bothered me the most, I think, is the inability. And I think most, if you think about it, ADs are kind of wired to fix things. You're trying to keep it from getting to the point where it needs to be fixed. But once something happens, you go into type A mode. I got to get this fixed. And when I looked at the situation in the spring, no matter what I tried to do, and even now, no matter what I try to do, in the back of my mind, I'm still trying to fix it. And in the front of my mind, I'm trying to get myself convinced, my whole mind, that I can only do so much to get it fixed. And that's the thing I struggled with, I think, in the spring the most, was I couldn't draw on anything. I couldn't draw on one of those manuals behind me to pull out, how do you deal with COVID? And that's what I told some parents when I talked to them on the phone about different issues that were coming up with graduation, because I oversee that too. And different things that were going on with the school, is this is such a fluid situation that there's nothing written on paper that we can go in and say, hey, this is how you deal with it. A hurricane, every AD that's been around for a while, basically how you're going to have to deal with the hurricane, or how you can deal with it, depending upon the severity. You've got a plan of attack. This is something that nobody has ever faced before. And there's nothing written that says, step one, do this, step two, do this, or anything like that. We're writing the manual as we go.
No,
Or building the airplane while we're flying it. That's another way some people look at it.
And that's so true. I mean, we're adding a new chapter each day with how to respond to this. Okay. Well, Ron, it has been a pleasure visiting with you today. You do such a great job at your school and for our state association and organization. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it. And look forward to seeing everybody in the spring. Got my fingers and toes crossed that we'll have our conference in May.
Okay. Absolutely. We are looking
And the
forward
national.
to that.
And the national.
And national. Yeah. We want everybody to come to Tampa, join us in Florida. Well, Ron, thanks again. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Please come back again for another edition of the Educational AD